The leading reason for DKA hospitalization admissions for people with diabetes was due to infusion site failure and complications with the infusion set. Our goal was to help people get better detection of infusion site failures when they were wearing an infusion set with their pump.
Hi, John. Welcome to the Via Diabetes interview series. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Olivia, I've been looking forward to this. Happy to participate.
Could you give us your diagnosis story and also how you manage your diabetes at the moment on top of your daily life and work?
I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 2005. That was actually on my 9th birthday. So I was having a birthday party. Of course, when you're in stage 3 going into diabetes diagnosis for type 1, your glucose levels are already incredibly high. And so eating cake and ice cream probably was not the best decision, but no one really knew why I was sick. We went in that day to my primary care physician, and it was pretty easy for them to tell right away that I was having type 1 diabetes symptoms. I had obviously a glucose level of over 900 milligrams per deciliter. I was in the hospital for 5 days. And after that diagnosis, I quickly started on the Omnipod system and utilized that pretty much up until today. I've been on that system for about 20 years. Today, I use the Dexcom G7, I use the Omnipod system, and it's helped me a lot.
I was wondering if you could give us an overview of your career today and any highlights that you'd like to particularly tell us about.
It's funny to say that, at age 9, I developed a passion for diabetes technology, but really, I was always into Legos and building things. And so when I got diabetes, I thought it was actually really, really cool to have all of these devices that made me kind of feel like I was like a robot, like this bionic kind of kid. I never was ashamed of it. If anything, I was very curious about it. And that stuck with me throughout my time growing up. And then when I went to college, I was very interested in going into the diabetes technology or medicine space. I studied biology and chemistry. And then during that time, I was preparing to go to medical school. But at the same time, I was also doing a lot of lab work and doing projects related to diabetes technology. My first project was actually a chemical agent that could bind to the adhesive of infusion sets. And so when insulin would leak from the cannula hole or port onto the adhesive, it would turn the adhesive blue. This would be really helpful for people who may have leaks with their infusion sites, and they could visually see, hey, I wasn't getting my insulin because insulin dries really fast, it evaporates, and you can't really tell. Maybe you can smell it, but I got some intellectual property for that, licensed out to the university, but I kind of kept down that track, started developing out more of a biomedical engineering approach to help detect infusion failures with insulin pumps. And that's where I met my co-founders, who are just the most amazing collaborators and colleagues and friends. So our senior year, in the last year at Florida State, we started a company called Diatech Diabetes and began the process of trying to build and commercialize a product called SmartFusion, which was a infusion site monitoring algorithm and app that could connect to a pump and then give you better insights on the health of your infusion site. And if you were having a failure like an occlusion, a leakage, a disconnection from the bottom, I had to turn around and tell my family, hey, I'm not going to go to medical school. I'm actually going to go and do this company that has no funding, has no product, but it's just an idea. And I'm very glad I took that step, because over the next several years, we were able to work with some incredible people at Breakthrough T1D, the NIH and the NIDDK. And we got funding from both of those organizations and built out our product and did a ton of research, filed patents. And eventually, when we started interacting with the FDA and manufacturers in the insulin pump space, we were approached for a exclusive acquisition of our technology, which we did. I'm working for DECA, which was the acquirer, and they're the manufacturer of the sequel twist insulin pump.
Could you kind of break down the issues that it resolves, like step by step?
Our goal was to help people get better detection of infusion site failures when they were wearing an infusion set with their pump. And so again, a failure can be an umbrella term, but essentially our system would be able to tap into data from the pump to better monitor when those failures were occurring, and then produce either historical log or alerts in real time. A lot of pumps would miss failures. and a lot of pumps could falsely detect them. The leading reason for DKA hospitalization admissions for people with diabetes was due to infusion site failure and complications with the infusion set. So DKA can happen because you don't get your insulin from infusion site failure.
Do you have any tips on securing funding in the diabetes tech space?
The biggest first tip is securing key opinion leader support early stage. You can only do that by having a product that makes sense or works or is solving a real problem. And once you acquire a either really great advisory board of key opinion leaders that can support you and connect you, you can utilize their expertise to target funding or use their support to help achieve funding. And then once you can achieve some of that very early stage funding, you can maybe achieve early stage research results, maybe prototype development, intellectual property filing. And these are all things that are really important for that next stage of funding. I think it's very important that you find people who are going to be on this journey with you through the start of your company, because not having a team and doing everything by yourself is impossible.
One issue that I've heard is quite difficult in the diabetes space is that diabetes is not a sexy disease. And so people are put off by funding it or by helping it in some way. I'm curious to know what kind of messaging you use in the way you approach funders.
Yeah, we had an interesting business model. I mean, we were developing out licensable software that would be sold directly business to business. We did not target a B2C model, which I think is very challenging for devices in the diabetes space, especially digital health devices in the diabetes space. Making people with diabetes pay for app usage or subscription models is tough. When we developed SmartFusion, our goal was to sell that integrated with a already existing pump. And so when a person would buy that pump, they would have that system enabled. We wouldn't be selling it as a separate system to people. Now, it greatly narrowed our customer base because now we are targeting insulin pump companies, which was, at that time, like less than 10 that we were seeing if possible customers for our product. Versus when target diabetes population, it's millions and millions of people that you could sell a product to. I think diabetes is a challenging space to generate a product for revenue. When you develop a product that you can sell directly to people, it requires obviously a very large FDA clearance strategy. So that adds years and capital that you need to secure to get that done. So if you haven't done competitive analysis of other systems in the market to you, if you haven't done user needs assessments on your product, if you haven't done risk assessments, I think it's going to be very hard to raise from that investor. So it's basically figure out what all of our problems were and write them all down and try and figure out a solution to all of those.
What do you want to see more of from the government in the US or maybe other businesses in the US to help you with your own diabetes management?
A lot. No, there are some things that are being developed out that is going to be in the next wave of diabetes technology and diabetes technology innovation. The fully closed loop system that is being developed right now by companies. There are obviously some very interesting screening and early stage pharmacological solutions to use to help possibly delay the onset of diabetes. There are things like multi-analyte sensing and combining possibly continuous glucose monitor sensors with insulin infusion cannulas. There are things such as extended wear time for pumps, different insulins that can be utilized within pumps. I mean, I can go on and on, GLP-1 usage with diabetes technology. And so I think it's very important that we make these products a reality, but what's even more important is making it so that people with diabetes understand them and can actually get their hands on them, making sure that whatever this next wave, whether it's again preventative, med device, beta cell regeneration, like all these amazing things, that people are going to be able to have an accessible route to getting those.
Do you have one piece of advice that you'd give a newly diagnosed person living with diabetes?
Find your community. Empathy is a very powerful thing in, I think, the diabetes space, and having someone that can relate to you on what it feels like to have to do these glucose checks or having to, think about what your glucose level is and all the medication and management and costs. Finding your community early on, I think, is super important. And I think I was a little late to that, I think. And I'm speaking to whoever's, watching this. If, there's anything that I can do to help facilitate that community building, I'm a resource here to help. And hopefully we can just make people feel like they have other people they can be with that have this condition.
Thank you so much again for your time. And it's been an absolute pleasure to get to speak with you and to know your story.
Thank you for the time too. And wishing the best, Olivia.